Who let this black girl in here? Get her out. She's making a mess of my floor.
Gerald Ashford didn't move from the doorway. He held his champagne glass, his face contorted with disgust. Hope Lawson stood still, 18 years old, calm.
I'm here for the board meeting. I'm new heiress.
Then Gerald's laughter shattered the silence, loud, cruel.
Heir? You? Look at her. Ragged clothes, black skin, and she calls herself the heir? Girl, the only thing you inherited is a mop.
Brenda yelled.
Call a doctor to examine this black monkey.
Ridiculous. Hope said nothing. Didn't blink. Just clutched the papers tightly in her hand and waited. She could be patient, because in 45 minutes, all those who are laughing now will be silent. 3 weeks before that moment, Hope Lawson's biggest worry was whether the electric bill would clear. She woke at 5:45 every morning in a 2-bedroom apartment in Decatur, Georgia, the kind of place where the paint peeled in long strips above the stove, and the window AC unit rattled like it was begging to die. Hope didn't complain. She never did. She made herself breakfast the same way every day. 2 eggs, scrambled dry. Toast with no butter because they ran out on Tuesday. Instant coffee, black. The mug had a crack down the side, but it held. She ate standing up at the kitchen counter, reading a worn-out paperback she'd picked up at a thrift store for 50 cents. The spine was broken in 3 places. She'd read it twice already. Her phone sat charging on the counter. Cracked screen. Model from 4 years ago. It worked. That was enough. Before she left, she wrote a note on a napkin and set it next to the coffee pot. Mom, ate breakfast. Don't forget to eat yours. Love you. Her mother, Denise, was asleep in the next room, still in scrubs. She'd gotten home at 4 a.m. from a 12-hour nursing shift at Grady Memorial, her second double this week. Hope locked the door quietly. She walked down the front steps into the morning heat. Georgia in July doesn't wait for the sun to rise before it starts pressing down on you. By 6 a.m., the air was already thick and damp, like breathing through a wet cloth. She walked past the barber shop that hadn't opened yet, past the church with the hand-painted sign out front, past Mr. Coleman watering his lawn in house slippers. Morning, Hope. Morning, Mr. Coleman. That was her world. Small. Quiet, honest. Nobody in this neighborhood would have guessed that this girl, this quiet, book-reading, toast-eating girl, had just been named the sole heir to a $280 million fortune. Including her, by the way. She barely believed it herself. 3 weeks earlier, Hope's phone had rung during dinner. The voice on the other end was calm, precise, professional. My name is Elaine Crawford. I'm a senior partner at Crawford & Associates. I'm calling about your grandmother, Constance Lawson. Hope almost hung up. She didn't have a grandmother, at least not one she'd ever met. Her father left before she turned 1. The Lawson side of the family was a ghost story. Names without faces, questions without answers. Denise never talked about them. But Constance Lawson was real. Very real. She had spent 40 years quietly building a fortune through real estate and stock holdings across the Southeast. No social media, no interviews, no public profile, just decades of disciplined, silent wealth accumulation. And she left every single dollar of it to Hope. $280 million. Plus a 40% ownership stake in the Ridgemont Country Club, the most exclusive private club in the state of Georgia. Attorney Crawford explained it all in a 30-minute phone call that changed Hope's life forever. Your grandmother wanted you to have this, Hope. All of it. She watched you from a distance your whole life. She chose you. Hope sat on her bed that night and stared at the cracked ceiling above her. The AC rattled. A dog barked outside. $280 million. She didn't sleep until 4 in the morning. Today was the day Attorney Crawford had arranged for Hope to meet the club's board of directors. An official introduction, papers to sign. A formality, Crawford said. It didn't feel like a formality. Hope walked up the long gravel driveway toward Ridgemont Country Club on foot. She didn't own a car. The bus dropped her 2 blocks away. The club rose in front of her like something from another century. White columns, a circular stone fountain, perfectly trimmed hedges lining a path made of imported flagstone. Mercedes, BMWs, and Cadillacs gleamed in the parking lot like polished teeth. Hope looked down at herself. Jeans, white t-shirt, old sneakers. She pushed open the front door. Inside, a crystal chandelier hung over a marble foyer. Oil paintings lined the walls. A glass trophy case stretched along the corridor. The air smelled like leather and fresh orchids. A woman in a silk dress walked past her, glanced at Hope, clutched her purse a little tighter, kept walking. The gate guard had already asked for her ID twice, radioed someone, didn't smile. The front desk attendant looked up, looked at Hope, looked at her jeans, looked back up. "Can I help you?" "I have an appointment," Hope said, "with the board." The attendant picked up the phone. Hope waited. She didn't know it yet, but Attorney Crawford was stuck in traffic on I-285. She was going to be 20 minutes late. 20 minutes was all Gerald Ashford needed. Hope stood by the welcome desk for 6 minutes before Gerald Ashford noticed her. 6 minutes of standing still, folder in hand, while guests in cocktail attire drifted past like she was furniture. A waiter offered champagne to the couple behind her, didn't look at her. A woman in pearls squeezed past with an exaggerated sidestep, as if Hope might be contagious. Then Gerald's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Barbara." He was talking to the front desk attendant, not to Hope, never to Hope. "What is this person doing in my lobby?" Barbara looked nervous. "She says she has an appointment, Mr. Ashford." Gerald set his champagne down, adjusted his cufflinks, walked toward Hope the way a man walks toward a stain on his carpet. He didn't greet her. He circled her, looked at her sneakers, her jeans, her t-shirt. His lip curled. "An appointment," he repeated. "With whom exactly?" Hope met his eyes, steady, even. "With the board. I'm the new heiress to the Lawson estate. I hold 40% ownership of this club." Gerald's face went blank for half a second. Then the corner of his mouth twitched. Then the laugh came. Not a polite laugh, not a surprised laugh, but the kind of laugh that's meant to break a person in half. "The heiress!" He threw his head back. "Did you all hear that? This child just told me she's the heiress." 2 men beside him started laughing. A woman behind them covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. Gerald leaned in close enough that Hope could smell the bourbon on his breath. "Girl, I've been running this club since before you were born. My father built these walls with his bare hands. And you're going to stand here, looking like you just crawled out of a Goodwill bin, and tell me you own this place?" He flicked his fingers toward her folder. "What's that, your little arts and crafts project?" Hope opened the folder. "These are certified legal documents from, I don't care if they're from God himself." Gerald was just getting started. He turned away from Hope and raised his voice. Not because he needed to, because he wanted an audience. "Brenda, come here. You have to see this." Brenda Ashford glided over, in a cream-colored dress, wine glass in hand, 2 other couples trailing behind her like a small parade of wealth. Gerald pointed at Hope the way someone points at a circus act. "This little black girl walked in off the street and told me, with a straight face, that she's the new heiress, the heiress of Ridgemont." He mimicked Hope's voice, higher, slower, exaggerated. "I'm the new heiress." The group howled. Brenda looked Hope up and down, slowly, deliberately, the way you inspect something before throwing it away. "Oh, sweetheart, Are you lost? The community center is 2 miles that way. They do free lunch on Tuesdays. More laughter. Hope didn't move. Ma'am, I'm not lost. Don't call me ma'am. Brenda's voice went cold. We don't know each other, and we're not going to. Gerald snapped his fingers. Show me. Show me these so-called documents. Hope held out the manila folder. Gerald snatched it from her hand, hard enough that one of the papers slipped loose and floated to the floor. He flipped through the pages with one hand, barely looking. Then he dropped the entire folder on the marble floor. Papers scattered across the tile like fallen leaves. Garbage, he said. Probably printed these at a library. Hope knelt down. One by one, she picked up the documents. Her hands were steady. Her face was blank. Nobody helped her. 30 people in that lobby. Crystal chandelier above. Oil paintings on the walls. A girl on her knees picking papers off the floor, while a man in a $3,000 suit stood over her. Not one person moved. Brenda sipped her wine. Gerald, honestly, just get rid of her. She's ruining the energy. A man in a navy blazer leaned toward his wife and whispered, Where did she even come from? His wife whispered back, Probably saw the gate open and walked in. Hope stood up, folder reassembled. She held it against her chest again. I'm not leaving, she said quietly. My attorney is on her way. Gerald's smile vanished. Your attorney. His voice dropped low, dangerous. You don't have an attorney. You don't have anything. You're a nobody who wandered into a place she doesn't belong, and now you're wasting my time. He stepped closer. His shadow fell over her. Let me make this very simple for you. People like you do not come here. People like you do not own things like this. And people like you do not tell me what to do in my house. He let the word my hang in the air like a verdict. Gerald didn't ask. He commanded. Todd! He snapped his fingers twice, loud and sharp, the way you call a dog. Get over here. Now. Officer Todd Nelson appeared from the side corridor. Late 30s, stocky build, polo shirt with the Ridgemont security patch on the chest, hand already resting on his belt. Mr. Ashford? This girl is trespassing. Get her out. Nelson looked at Hope. His eyes went to her clothes first, then her skin, then back to Gerald. Yes, sir. He walked toward Hope, not beside her, at her. Chest puffed, jaw set, feet heavy on the marble. Ma'am, you need to come with me. Hope didn't move. I'm not trespassing. I have a legal right to be here. My attorney is en route. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step outside right now. No. Nelson's hand moved from his belt to her arm. His grip was firm, too firm. His fingers dug into the soft skin above her elbow. Let go of me, Hope said. Not loud, not panicked, just clear. He didn't let go. He pulled. Gerald watched from behind, arms crossed, chin lifted, satisfied. If she resists, call the police. I want her arrested. Nelson pulled harder. Hope planted her feet. She looked at him the way you look at someone who's making the worst decision of their life and doesn't know it yet. I said let go. Brenda laughed from across the lobby. Oh, she's feisty. Maybe they should send 2 cars. A young woman near the window pulled out her phone and started recording. She didn't say anything. She just held the phone steady. An older man at the bar shook his head. This doesn't feel right, he muttered, to no one in particular. But he didn't move either. Nelson reached for his radio. This is Nelson at the main lobby. I need police assistance. We have a trespasser who's refusing to leave. Black female, late teens. The radio crackled back. Copy, units en route. Gerald smiled. The kind of smile that says, I always win. They came fast. 6 minutes. 2 patrol cars. Ridgemont had a direct line to the local precinct. Membership had its privileges. 2 officers walked through the front door, boots echoing on marble. The lobby had gone quiet. Guests stood along the walls like spectators at an arena, drinks in hand, watching. Gerald met them first. He was animated, loud, performing. Officers, thank God. This girl barged in here uninvited. She's been causing a disturbance, refusing to leave, and making wild claims about owning the club. He lowered his voice just enough to sound reasonable. Honestly, I'm concerned she might be casing the place. The first officer, tall, mid-40s, approached Hope. Ma'am, can I see some identification? Hope reached into her back pocket slowly. She handed over her driver's license. The officer looked at it, looked at her, looked back at it. Miss Lawson, what's your reason for being here today? I have a meeting with the board of directors. I'm the legal heir to the Constance Lawson estate, which holds a 40% stake in this club. My attorney, Elaine Crawford, is on her way. The second officer glanced at his partner. Something passed between them, a flicker of hesitation. The first officer turned to Gerald. Sir, she has valid ID. Is she threatening anyone? Gerald's face reddened. She's threatening the integrity of this club. She's lying. She's trespassing. I want her removed, now. The officer hesitated. He looked at Hope again. He looked at Gerald. Gerald Ashford, whose name was on the donor wall 15 feet behind them, whose family had funded the precinct's annual gala for a decade. Miss Lawson, the officer said slowly, for your own safety, I'm going to need you to step outside. Hope looked him dead in the eye. I know my rights, officer. I have not committed a crime. I am not leaving. Gerald stepped forward. You heard her. She's refusing a lawful order. Arrest her. The officer paused, looked at Gerald, looked at the marble floor, the chandelier, the oil paintings, the room full of wealthy white faces all staring at him. He reached for his handcuffs. Ma'am, please turn around and place your hands behind your back. The handcuffs didn't go on gently. The officer turned Hope around, pulled her wrists behind her back, and clicked the metal shut 2 notches too tight. The cold steel bit into her skin. She felt the ridges press against the bones of her wrists. Is this necessary? Hope asked. Her voice was steady, but quieter now. The officer didn't answer. Gerald was standing 10 feet away, arms crossed, watching the way a man watches a problem being solved. Brenda had moved closer, phone in hand, recording with a little smile on her face. Check her bag, Gerald said. Not a suggestion, an order. The second officer looked at Hope's canvas tote sitting on the floor by the welcome desk. Small, worn, olive green. A book poking out of the top. Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your bag. Hope looked at him, hands cuffed behind her back. Do you have a warrant? It's standard procedure. No, it isn't. I don't consent to a search. Gerald took a step forward. Just open the damn bag. She probably stole something on her way in. Check her pockets, too. The officer hesitated. He looked at Gerald. He looked at the room. 50-plus guests, all watching, all silent, all wealthy, all white. He opened the bag. One by one, he pulled out the contents and set them on the welcome desk. A paperback novel with a broken spine. A water bottle, half empty. A pen. A stick of spearmint gum. The manila envelope with Hope's legal documents. The same ones Gerald had thrown on the floor minutes earlier. He opened the envelope, glanced at the papers inside, didn't read them, set them down. Nothing stolen, nothing suspicious, nothing at all. Gerald didn't blink. Check her pockets. The officer turned Hope around again. He patted down her jeans pockets, found her cracked phone. Her wallet. Inside, $11 and a bus pass. Her apartment key on a plain metal ring. He set everything on the desk next to her bag. Hope stared at her belongings spread out on the counter like evidence. Her entire life laid bare in front of strangers. $11, a bus pass, a cracked phone, a library book. Gerald looked at the items, snorted. That's what I thought. Not exactly Heiress material, is it? Brenda laughed, a bright, sharp laugh like glass breaking. Hope's jaw tightened. That was the only sign, the only crack. You just conducted an illegal search, she said finally. Quiet, controlled. I did not consent, and every second of this is being recorded. The officer's eyes flickered toward the young woman in the corner, still holding up her phone. He looked away fast, but he didn't uncuff Hope. He didn't return her things. He didn't apologize. He just stepped back and waited for someone else to make the next decision. Gerald made the next decision. He always did. He walked toward Hope slowly, hands in his pockets. The crowd parted for him without being asked. That's how power works in rooms like this. It moves, and people get out of the way. He stopped 2 feet from Hope, close enough to tower over her, close enough that she could see the broken capillaries on his nose, the yellowed edges of his teeth, the absolute certainty in his eyes. He spoke low, not whispering, just low enough that it felt private, even though 30 people could hear every word. Let me educate you, little girl, since clearly nobody else has. He paused, let the silence build. This club was built in 1962. My father laid the first stone. Every president, every governor, every Fortune 500 CEO in this state has walked through these doors. And in 60 years, not once, not one single time, has someone like you set foot in this building. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hope didn't answer. I'm saying you don't belong here. You never did, you never will. Whatever fantasy brought you through that door today, inheritance, heiress, board meeting, I want you to let it go. Because nobody in this room believes you. Nobody in this state will believe you. And when you walk out of here today, which you will, nobody is going to remember your name. Brenda appeared at Gerald's side. She looked at Hope with an expression that wasn't anger. It was worse. It was pity. Manufactured, theatrical pity. Honey, look at yourself. Really look. Do you honestly think someone like you inherits anything? People like you don't build wealth. You don't run things. You clean them. Hope's chest rose and fell. Once. Slowly. She said nothing. Gerald turned to Officer Nelson. Take her to the back office. I don't want her in the lobby anymore. She's upsetting the guests. Nelson stepped forward. Hope stepped back. No. I'm staying right here, in front of everyone. Gerald's jaw tightened. The mask of amusement was slipping. Underneath it was something harder, meaner. Booker, he said to the officers. Trespassing, disorderly conduct, whatever you've got. I want her gone, and I want it on record. The first officer reached for his notepad. Ma'am, you're being placed under arrest for trespassing and disorderly conduct. You have the right to remain silent. Hope stood still as the words washed over her. Miranda rights. In a country club lobby, with her belongings still spread out on the desk and champagne corks still popping in the next room. She looked around the room, 50 faces looking back, some uncomfortable, most indifferent, none intervening, not one. The front door swung open hard enough to bounce off the wall. Denise Lawson stood in the doorway, still in scrubs, badge still clipped to her chest. Eyes wild, scanning the room, searching. She found Hope in 3 seconds. Her daughter, in handcuffs, surrounded by officers. Gerald Ashford standing 5 feet away with a drink in his hand. Denise crossed that lobby like a woman walking through fire. "Take those off her, right now." Her voice broke the silence like a hammer through glass. "That is my daughter. She is 18 years old. Take those handcuffs off." Gerald barely glanced at her. "And who are you? Her public defender?" "I'm her mother." "Well, mother, your daughter is trespassing. She walked into a private establishment, caused a scene, and refused to leave. The police are handling it." Denise looked at the officers. On what charge? What did she do? What crime did she commit? The officer with the notepad shifted on his feet. "Ma'am, she was asked to leave and she refused." "Because she has every right to be here," Denise's voice cracked. Not from weakness, from fury she was barely containing. "Our attorneys have the legal documents. She is the heir to the Constance Lawson estate. She owns 40% of this club." Gerald rolled his eyes. "Oh, wonderful. Now there's 2 of them." He turned to Brenda. "Next they'll tell me the dog is on the board of directors." Brenda covered her mouth, laughing. Denise's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the effort of not crossing the room and putting her fist through Gerald Ashford's teeth. She pulled out her phone, dialed. Her voice dropped low and urgent. "Elaine, you need to get here, now. They've arrested Hope. They put her in handcuffs, Elaine. My baby is in handcuffs." She hung up, turned to Gerald, looked at him with something beyond anger, a cold, ancient knowing. "You have no idea what you just did." Gerald smirked. "I know exactly what I did. I took out the trash." They walked her out through the main hall, past the oil paintings, past the crystal chandelier, past the trophy case with 60 years of engraved names, all white, all men, all Ashford friends. Hope's hands were cuffed behind her back. Officer Nelson walked on her left, one hand gripping her arm. The patrol officer walked on her right. Their boots echoed on the marble. The guests lined the hallway like a corridor of ghosts, silent, watching. Some turned away. Most didn't. A woman in a green dress leaned toward her husband. "See, I told you, they'll let anyone in these days." Her husband nodded. Gerald handled it well. Hope kept walking, back straight, eyes forward. She didn't look at any of them. The front door opened. Sunlight hit her face. The heat wrapped around her like a wet blanket. Cicadas screamed in the oak trees lining the driveway. They put her in the back of the patrol car. The seat was hard plastic. It smelled like sweat and chemical cleaner. The door closed with a heavy thud that echoed in her chest. Through the window, Hope saw her mother standing alone in the gravel parking lot. Denise's scrubs were wrinkled. Her hands were pressed against her mouth. Her shoulders shook. Behind Denise, through the club's tall windows, Hope could see the party continuing, glasses clinking, laughter floating out through the open terrace doors. The patrol car pulled away. Gravel crunched under the tires. Red and blue lights reflected off the white columns of Ridgemont as the car turned onto the main road. Hope sat in the back seat, hands cuffed, staring straight ahead. She didn't cry. Not one tear. She was done waiting. She was done being patient. One thought played over and over in her mind, clear and cold as ice. They have no idea what's coming. 45 minutes. That's how long Hope sat in the holding area of the Decatur County Police Station. Cinder block walls painted the color of old teeth. A metal bench bolted to the floor. A fluorescent light buzzing overhead, flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. Hope sat with her hands in her lap, The cuffs were off, but the red marks were still there. 2 angry lines circling her wrists, like bracelets she didn't ask for. She didn't speak, didn't call anyone. Just sat, back straight, eyes on the door. Then the front door opened. The sound of heels on linoleum came first. Sharp, precise, each step landing like a verdict. Attorney Elaine Crawford walked into that station like she owned the building and was disappointed in its upkeep. Navy suit pressed to a razor's edge. Designer briefcase, gold clasps. Every detail deliberate. Behind her, Attorney Russell Whitmore, tall, gray at the temples, former federal prosecutor. He carried a leather portfolio and a look that said someone was about to have a very bad day. Crawford didn't stop at the front desk. She walked past it. The sergeant stood up. "Ma'am, you can't just, I can and I am." She walked straight to the holding area, saw Hope through the glass, opened the door, looked at her wrists, at the red marks. "Are you hurt?" Hope shook her head. Crawford turned and walked back to the front desk. She opened her briefcase with 2 clean clicks and began placing documents down, one by one, like dealing cards. "My name is Elaine Crawford, senior partner, Crawford & Associates. This is my co-counsel, Russell Whitmore. You are currently holding my client, Hope Lawson. First document. Last will and testament of Constance Lawson, notarized, filed with Fulton County Probate Court. Second. Probate court order confirming Hope Lawson as sole heir, estate valued at $280 million. Third. Certified ownership certificate, 40% stake in Ridgemont Country Club. Fourth. Letter from the Georgia Secretary of State confirming the legal transfer. She squared the stack and looked the sergeant dead in the eye. "You will release my client immediately. Return every personal item taken from her. And then we are going back to that club." The sergeant looked at the documents, looked at Crawford, looked at Whitmore, who hadn't said a word, hadn't needed to. He picked up his keys. Hope walked out with her head high, her folder under her arm, and 2 of the most powerful attorneys in Georgia flanking her like armor. Denise was waiting in the lot. She grabbed Hope and held her so tight the girl couldn't breathe. Crawford touched Denise's arm gently. "We're not done. Get in the car." A black SUV pulled up to Ridgemont 22 minutes later. Crawford stepped out first, then Whitmore, then Hope, then Denise. 4 doors closing, one after another, like gunshots. Inside, Gerald was exactly where you'd expect him. On the terrace, 3rd bourbon in hand, retelling the story to a fresh audience, mimicking Hope's voice, doing the walk, getting the laughs. She looked me dead in the face and said, "I'm the new heiress." He slapped his thigh. "Best entertainment we've had all summer." The laughter stopped when Crawford walked through the terrace doors. She didn't smile. She walked directly to Gerald and stopped 3 feet in front of him. "Mr. Ashford, my name is Elaine Crawford. I represent Hope Lawson, legal heir to the Constance Lawson estate and majority stakeholder of this club. 40 minutes ago, you had my client handcuffed, searched without consent, and arrested on property she legally owns." She held out a single document. Gerald took it. His hand was already shaking. Whitmore stepped forward. "We have the club's security footage, cell phone recordings from 6 guests, the arresting officer's body camera footage. We will be filing charges." Gerald's face went white. Not pale, white. The color of a man watching his life crack down the middle. This has to be, you can't." "We can," Crawford said. "We are. And we will." The terrace went silent. Every guest frozen. Every glass still. Then Hope stepped forward. She looked Gerald in the eye. the same eyes that had looked at her with disgust, the same eyes that watched her kneel to pick up scattered documents, the same eyes that watched her dragged out in handcuffs. "You laughed when I said I'm the new heiress," one beat. "You're not laughing now." Gerald opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Brenda grabbed his arm. "Gerald, we should go." Crawford wasn't finished. What happened today was assault, illegal search, false imprisonment, and racially motivated harassment, all documented, all admissible. Gerald's glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the terrace stone. Nobody moved to clean it up. The silence on that terrace lasted 11 seconds. 11 seconds of Gerald Ashford standing in a puddle of shattered glass and spilled bourbon, surrounded by every person he'd ever tried to impress, with nothing left to say. Then he tried to speak. Now hold on." He held up both hands, palms out, the universal gesture of a man who just realized the ground beneath him is gone. "Let's not blow this out of proportion. I didn't know who she was. Anyone in my position would have done the same thing." Crawford didn't blink. "You didn't ask who she was, Mr. Ashford. You saw a black teenager and decided she didn't belong. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice." Gerald pivoted. He turned to Hope, changed his voice, softer now, slower, the kind of voice people use when they know they're being recorded. "Look, Hope, is it? I'm sorry if I offended you. I was trying to protect the club. You have to understand, we get all kinds of people trying to walk in here. I was just being cautious." Hope stared at him. She didn't nod, didn't soften, didn't give him an inch. "You weren't being cautious," she said. "You were performing. You wanted everyone in this room to watch you put me in my place. And they did." Gerald flinched. It was small, a twitch at the corner of his mouth, but it was there. The flinch of a man who just heard the truth and felt it land. He turned to the crowd, looking for backup, looking for a friendly face, looking for anyone to throw him a rope. Nobody threw. The couple in matching blazers who had laughed the hardest were already walking toward the side exit. The man in the navy jacket, who had whispered, "Where did she even come from?" was studying his shoes, like they contained the secrets of the universe. The woman who had clutched her purse tighter when Hope walked in was halfway to the parking lot. One by one, Gerald's audience was leaving, not with a scene, not with confrontation, just quiet, efficient disappearance, the way rats leave a ship they know is sinking. A man Gerald had golfed with for 15 years approached Crawford instead. Gray hair, pressed khakis, club tie. "Ma'am, I saw what happened. I'd like to cooperate with any investigation. I can provide a witness statement." Crawford handed him a business card without breaking eye contact with Gerald. Gerald watched the exchange. His jaw hung open slightly. The betrayal on his face was almost theatrical, except this time, nobody was performing. Brenda tugged his sleeve. "Gerald, stop talking. We need to go." For once, Gerald listened to his wife. Crawford turned to Officer Nelson, who had been standing near the terrace railing, trying to become invisible. He hadn't moved since the lawyers walked in. His face was the color of wet cement. "Officer Nelson," Crawford's voice carried across the terrace like a courtroom closing statement. "You conducted an illegal search without consent or probable cause. You physically restrained a minor with no legal basis. You used excessive force. My office has already contacted the Georgia State Licensing Board and filed a formal complaint." Nelson's mouth opened and closed. Mr. Ashford told me to. I was just following the instructions of a private citizen to violate someone's constitutional rights is not a defense, Officer Nelson." Crawford paused, Let it sink in. It's a confession. Nelson looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at the floor. The club's general manager appeared from inside, mid-50s, sweating through his dress shirt. He'd clearly just been briefed and looked like a man trying to defuse a bomb with a plastic fork. "Mr. Ashford," he said, voice trembling slightly. "I've been informed of the situation. Your membership is under review, pending the board's emergency session this Friday." Gerald spun around. "Under review? My father built this club. My name is on that wall." The manager swallowed. "Sir, Miss Lawson owns 40% of this club. The board will convene Friday. Until then, we're asking you to leave the premises." "You're asking me to leave?" "Yes, sir." Gerald looked around one last time. The terrace was nearly empty now. Abandoned glasses on tables, napkins on the floor, the fountain still trickling in the courtyard below, indifferent to everything. Brenda pulled him toward the back exit. No one walked them out. No one said goodbye. No one even looked up. The back door closed behind them with a soft click. And just like that, Gerald Ashford left the Ridgemont Country Club for the last time in his life. He just didn't know it yet. The first phone call came 48 hours later. Attorney Crawford filed the civil complaint on a Tuesday morning at 9:01 a.m., 1 minute after the Fulton County Courthouse opened its doors. The document was 46 pages long. Every page was a nail in Gerald Ashford's coffin. The charges read like a grocery list from hell: assault, false imprisonment, illegal search and seizure, racially motivated harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Filed against Gerald Ashford personally, against Ashford Holdings as a corporate entity, against the Ridgemont Country Club for institutional negligence, and against the Decatur County Police Department for unlawful arrest and violation of Fourth Amendment rights. Total damages sought, $15 million. The same day, Crawford's office sent a formal complaint to the Georgia State Police requesting a criminal investigation into Officer Todd Nelson and the 2 responding patrol officers. The complaint included timestamps, body camera footage references, and a 6-page legal brief explaining exactly how many constitutional violations occurred in the span of 38 minutes. By Wednesday, subpoenas had been issued for every second of Ridgemont's security footage from that day. By Thursday, it didn't matter, because by Thursday, the internet had already seen everything. The first video surfaced on Wednesday night, posted by the young woman who had been standing near the window with her phone. She uploaded it to social media with a single caption: "This happened at Ridgemont Country Club yesterday. Watch the whole thing." The clip was 4 minutes and 12 seconds long. It showed Gerald snatching the folder from Hope's hands. It showed the documents scattering across the marble floor. It showed Hope on her knees picking them up. It showed Gerald standing over her, smiling. It got 2 million views in 9 hours. By Thursday morning, 3 more videos had surfaced, from different angles. One showed Nelson grabbing Hope's arm. Another captured the illegal search, Hope's belongings spread across the welcome desk, her $11 and bus pass on display for the world to see. The third was the clearest, and the worst. It showed Hope being walked out in handcuffs through the main hall while the party continued behind her. That one got 11 million views. Reporter Vanessa Grant broke the story on Atlanta's largest news station Thursday evening. She stood in front of the Ridgemont gates with a microphone and a look on her face that said she'd been waiting her entire career for a story like this. The headline ran across every screen in the state: "Black Heiress arrested at country club she owns." By Friday, it was national. Cable news, morning shows, late-night monologues, legal analysts drawing diagrams on whiteboards. The footage played on a loop. Gerald's laugh, Hope's silence, the handcuffs clicking shut. The hashtag started trending Friday afternoon. Hashtag Hope Deserves Better. Within 24 hours, it was the #1 trend in the country. Then the other stories started coming. Former members of Ridgemont, people who had left the club years ago and never spoken publicly, began posting their own experiences. A black surgeon who was asked to show ID 3 times in one visit. A Latino businessman whose guest pass was lost every time he arrived. A mixed-race couple who were seated in the back corner of the dining room for 4 years straight and never once offered a table by the window. A pattern, exposed, decades deep. Gerald's world didn't just crack, it crumbled. Ashford Holdings began hemorrhaging contracts within a week. 3 development partners issued public statements severing ties. The city of Marietta canceled a $22 million mixed-use project that Ashford Holdings had spent 2 years negotiating. Gerald's personal banker called to discuss the status of his line of credit, which in banker language means prepare for bad news. 6 months later, the civil trial began in Fulton County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Coleman presided. Gray-haired, wire-rimmed glasses, 30 years on the bench. She had a reputation for 2 things: absolute fairness and zero tolerance for nonsense. Crawford presented the case with surgical precision. Security footage, frame by frame, cell phone videos synced to a timeline, police body camera recordings with audio enhanced. Hope's testimony, quiet, detailed, devastating in its calmness. Denise's testimony, raw, emotional, a mother describing the moment she found her daughter in handcuffs. Witness statements from 9 guests who had been present. Expert testimony from a professor of sociology, specializing in racial profiling and implicit bias. Gerald's defense team tried everything. Reasonable suspicion, they argued. Hope's appearance was inconsistent with typical club membership. Gerald was acting in good faith to protect the club's interests. There was no racial motivation. He would have questioned anyone who appeared out of place. Crawford stood up. She walked to the center of the courtroom and faced the jury. Inconsistent with typical membership. Let me translate that. She was black. She was young. She was wearing jeans. In Mr. Ashford's world, that is the only evidence he needed. Not a criminal record, not a threat, not a weapon. Just the color of her skin and the price of her clothes. That is not reasonable suspicion. That is racial bias. And it is exactly what the law was written to prevent. The courtroom was silent. Gerald took the stand on day 4. His attorney had coached him. Stay calm, stay sympathetic, show remorse. Gerald lasted 11 minutes before the mask fell off. Under cross-examination, Crawford asked a single question. Mr. Ashford, if Hope Lawson had been a white 18-year-old girl in jeans, would you have called security? Gerald paused. His lawyer shifted in his chair. That's not a fair question. It's the only question that matters, Mr. Ashford. Gerald's face reddened. His voice rose. I built that club. I have a right to protect it. I don't care what color she is. She didn't look like she belonged there. Didn't look like she belonged, Crawford repeated softly. She turned to the jury. Let the words hang. She had no further questions. Judge Coleman delivered the ruling on a Friday afternoon. The courtroom was packed. Camera crews lined the hallway outside. Judgment in favor of Hope Lawson. On all counts. Compensatory damages, $8 million. Punitive damages, $4 million. Total, $12 million, awarded against Gerald Ashford personally and Ashford Holdings. Judge Coleman read her statement without looking up once. Her voice was flat and final, the way a hammer sounds when it hits the last nail. What occurred at the Ridgemont Country Club was not a misunderstanding. It was not an overreaction. It was a textbook case of racial animus disguised as property rights, enabled by institutional complicity and enforced by the unlawful exercise of police power. This court will not normalize it. This court will not excuse it, and this court will ensure it carries consequences. Officer Todd Nelson, security license permanently revoked, charged with misdemeanor assault. Convicted. The two responding patrol officers, suspended 90 days without pay, mandatory bias training, permanent disciplinary marks on their records. The Decatur County Police Department settled for $2.5 million, agreed to implement mandatory de-escalation training, civilian oversight review, and revised use of force protocols. Gerald Ashford, permanently banned from Ridgemont Country Club, assets frozen pending payment. Ashford Holdings filed for restructuring within the year. Every single person who laughed that day paid for it. Every single one. 1 year later, a photograph appeared in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that made half the state stop scrolling. Hope Lawson, seated at the head of a long mahogany table in the Ridgemont Country Club boardroom. 19 years old, natural hair pulled back, white blouse, simple gold earrings. The same calm expression she'd worn the day Gerald Ashford tried to destroy her. Except this time, she was sitting in his chair. The board had voted unanimously to appoint her as the youngest sitting member in the club's 60-year history. The vote wasn't close. It wasn't controversial. It was inevitable. Hope didn't use that seat to settle scores. She used it to rewrite the rules. Within 6 months, Ridgemont adopted a comprehensive diversity and inclusion charter, the first in its history. The board was restructured. New members were recruited from communities that had been shut out for decades. A scholarship fund was established in Constance Lawson's name, providing full tuition to students from underrepresented backgrounds pursuing law, business, and public policy. The oil paintings in the foyer stayed, but a new one was added, a portrait of Constance Lawson, painted from the only photograph Hope's mother had ever seen of her. It hung at the entrance, right next to the chandelier, right where Hope had stood on the day everything changed. Every person who walked through those doors saw it first. Hope enrolled at Spelman College that fall. Full ride. Not that she needed one. She chose to study civil rights law. When a reporter asked her why, she said something that ended up printed on T-shirts and protest signs across the country. Because what happened to me shouldn't require a $280 million inheritance to fix. She established the Constance Lawson Foundation with a portion of the settlement and her personal funds. The foundation provided 2 things: scholarships for young people of color pursuing higher education, and free legal representation for individuals facing racial discrimination who couldn't afford an attorney. In its first year, the foundation funded 42 scholarships and took on 16 pro bono cases. Every single one was won. Denise Lawson finally cut her hours at Grady Memorial. Not because she had to, because she could. For the first time in 18 years, she didn't pick up a double shift. She didn't set 3 alarms. She didn't fall asleep in her scrubs. She took a vacation, her first in over a decade. She and Hope spent a week in Savannah, eating shrimp on a porch overlooking the river, reading paperbacks in rocking chairs, doing absolutely nothing. One evening, Denise looked at Hope across the porch table. The crickets were loud. The air smelled like salt and magnolia. You know what I keep thinking about? What? That napkin you left me. The morning this all started. Don't forget to eat breakfast. Hope smiled. Did you eat it? No, Denise said. I never do. They both laughed. The kind of laugh that only people who have survived something together understand. Gerald Ashford was last seen listing his home for sale in a neighborhood 3 zip codes below his old one. Ashford Holdings had been dissolved. His memberships, all of them, had been revoked. The man who once told a teenage girl that nobody would remember her name became the man whose name nobody wanted to say out loud. He became a case study, literally. 3 law schools added the Lawson versus Ashford ruling to their civil rights curriculum. His face appeared in PowerPoint slides under the heading Modern Racial Discrimination in Private Institutions. He wanted to be remembered at Ridgemont. He got his wish, just not the way he planned. So let me ask you something. If you were standing in that lobby, watching an 18-year-old girl get humiliated, searched, and arrested for telling the truth, would you have said something? Or would you have been one of the people who looked away? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this story made you feel something, if it made you angry or relieved or hopeful, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more stories where the truth wins and the people who abuse their power get exactly what they deserve. Because here's what I've learned, and I mean this. Silence isn't neutral. Silence is a choice. And in moments like these, it's the wrong one.
Here's something I want you to remember after the story. When you know who you are, really know, nobody's laughter can touch you. People can mock you, people can call you names, people can look at your clothes and your shoes and decide you are nothing. But that's their story, not yours. And their story doesn't change your truth, not even a little bit. And here's the other thing. The people who judge you the fastest are always the ones who know the least. Always. Because if they actually took 5 seconds to listen, 5 seconds to ask instead of assume, they'd save themselves a whole lot of embarrassment. But they don't, because judging is easier than listening. And that's their loss. Every single time. So, if someone laughs at you today, let them. If someone says you don't belong, let them say it. Because the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs you to keep standing. The people who laugh always stop eventually. But that's real about you, that never stops. Like, share, and subscribe. Real stories, real justice. Every week. And remember, nobody gets to tell you who you are. You already know. And that's enough.